We are 16 months into the full-fledged, unprovoked Russian invasion of Ukraine. As the wait for Ukraine's big offensive continues at the time of writing this script, so too does the stalemate. In this tug-of-war over small gains and losses, it appears that the Russian military is bringing a somewhat new weapon to the war. On the 24th of March 2023, a squadron of 10 Russian Su-35s was speeding towards Sumy province in Ukraine. However, this was no ordinary mission, as the Su-35s were armed with a new bomb, or shall we say an updated bomb. Loaded only on board these Su-35s were Russia's general-purpose airdrop bombs, their go-to weapon, which had been upgraded to act as a Russian version of the American JDAM bomb. This event has gone down as the first time the Russians used JDAM-type bombs en masse in the current war. So let's find out if the Russians have a war-changing weapon, and if it can stack up to the American JDAMs now exporting to Ukraine. Nobody likes sponsors cutting into the video's flow, but a channel like ours can't survive without sponsors. At some point, we'd like to stop relying on the sponsors and present our videos sponsor-free to everyone. To do that, we need at least 10,000 YouTube channel members and patrons. Your kind support is always appreciated. We would not be able to create so many videos without you. Channel members and patrons get weekly exclusive videos, like our finished series on the Peloponnesian War, and the ongoing series on the Italian Wars of Unification, Risorgimento, as well as the Anabasis of Xenophon and the history of Prussia, as well as many interesting non-serialized videos. Our supporters also get our schedule, early access to the videos, access to our exclusive Discord, and much more. Thank you for supporting us. Currently, a lot of the infantry fighting in Ukraine are in close quarters because there is urban warfare raging in the cities, with trenches and underground dugouts in the open countryside. The main reason for this is the ability to kill on the modern battlefield is more potent than ever before. It is now very dangerous for unprotected targets like infantry to be caught out in the open. So it's almost necessary for troops to be positioned in cities where there is more cover, or where they can make their own cover. Truth be told, trenches have never really gone away, as they've always been an important fortification of the infantry soldier, but no one was expecting such large-scale trench warfare in the modern day. One element that does seem to be repeating history is the fact that trench warfare is causing stalemates. Thus, both sides are only scoring little victories and defeats, using artillery and airstrikes to whittle each other down. This means that any attacker will have an even more difficult time achieving a breakthrough, as they now have to contend with a line of infantry in hard cover, plus infantry that can call in artillery and airstrikes with immediate effect. Moreover, if an attacker does break through defensive lines, then there will be tanks waiting for them. This means that both Russian and Ukrainian soldiers alike want to call in accurate airstrikes to help gain territory. Each side will almost be taking turns to attack and defend. Russia is attempting to take more of Ukraine, whilst the Ukrainians will have to attack to retake their country. Both sides have a need to continue attacking, so in an attempt to break the stalemates and get back on the offensive, we assume the Russian military higher-ups have requested smarter bombs to allow close air support for Russian ground troops. The Russian JDAM in question is called the FAB-500. The first version of this Fogas air bomb was produced in the USSR in 1954. It has seen widespread use in the Soviet-Afghanistan War, the Syrian Civil War, and the current Russia-Ukraine War. The FAB-500 is designed to bomb railway junctions, lightly armoured or soft-skinned targets, military-industrial facilities, field fortifications, and infantry. It is a 500-kilogram high-explosive unguided bomb, meaning that once released from the aircraft, it falls freely to the target, much like the film footage you see from old World War II bombers. This does mean the bomb is cheaper and easier to build, but it does present the issue that the bomb has a chance of being off-target or missing completely. If your own ground forces are in close proximity to the target, which is often the case in urban terrain, this is not ideal. The fact is, it is designed for a variety of military targets, Yet there is plenty of footage online of FAB-500s laying crashed and unexploded in civilian houses, proving that either the pilots have bad aim or the bombs are inadequate. This leads on to the idea that Russian ground units want more accurate bombing on Ukrainian positions. The JDAM type bomb is of an interesting design. The variant called the FAB-500 M62 was first designed back in 1962, but appears to have never been used in quantities or even in a large bombing raid. Therefore, little is known about it. This could suggest that the Russians have had problems getting it to work correctly, and so prefer unguided bombing. The FAB-500 M62 looks like it has now likely been fitted with a glide kit, making it similar to the American JDAM. The glide kit looks like it's of a crude design, so we can guess that the Russians have focused on mass production at low cost rather than quality. Munitions are loaded and stored externally to the fighter bomber. When the Russian bomb is released, 2 wings deploy horizontally in the midsection and 2 smaller wings at the rear. The bomb then glides to the target. Glide bombing, first pioneered in World War II by the Germans, allows the attacking aircraft to deploy bombs a lot further from the target. This allows more safety for the fighter bomber to stay away from Ukrainian anti-aircraft fire. Most glide bombs can be guided to the target with the use of GPS or lasers. The FAB-500 M62 seems to have satellite navigation capability, but we cannot confirm if it has an internal navigation system. The range of these guided munitions is up to 70 kilometers. The blast radius is up to 140 meters for soft-skinned targets and up to 60 meters for lightly armored targets, meaning that lethality at further ranges is diminished if the targets are armored. So if you ever see footage of armored vehicles taking multiple explosive shells or bombs, now you know why. The FAB-500 M62 can be carried on hard points of wings or the fuselage of the Su-17 Fitter, MiG-21 Fishbed, MiG-23 Flogger, MiG-29 Flanker, MiG-25 Foxbat, Su-24 Fencer, Tu-16 Badger, Tu-95 Bear and Su-25 Frogfoot, which is the Russian counterpart to the A-10 Warthog. It can even be fitted to some foreign models and even the Mi-24 Hind helicopter, although this is highly uncommon. The FAB-500 M62 comes in 4 variants, from 100 kilograms of explosives to 250 kilograms, 500 kilograms, and finally 1000 kilograms. However, the 1000 kilogram variant can only be carried by dedicated bombers, and so the 500 kilogram is the most common. They are aerodynamic to reduce drag, and are deployed from altitudes starting at 570 meters all the way up to 12,000 meters. The fuse, located at the nose of the munition, has the ability to be set to a delayed fuse or point detonation. Both have their uses. For instance, armored targets would require a delayed fuse, giving time for the bomb to bury itself into the target first, hopefully piercing armor, such as a main battle tank, before exploding. Point detonation is best used against unarmored targets, or targets that are easier to destroy, for example something like a railway. The FAB-500 M62 is currently in use throughout the Ukrainian front line. Multiple bombing raids are hitting their lines in an attempt to weaken resistance. In fact, they are causing great concern, as the Ukrainian Air Force spokesman Yuri Inat admitted on the 4th of April that so far, Ukraine does not have the means to defend against Russian jets deploying bombs outside of the bubble of the Ukrainian air defense. It is important to mention that the Western allies continued to saturate Ukrainian air defense with new hardware, and the talks of Ukrainians getting F-16s are intensifying at this point. We'll talk about this in our future videos. Interestingly, about the same time Russia deployed their FAB-500 M62s, the United States exported JDAMs to Ukraine. These won't be able to counter the Russian FAB-500 threat, but gives Ukraine a similar weapon. The JDAM, or Joint Direct Attack Munition, required some work before it could be used in combat, as it was not designed to work with or be deployed from the Ukrainian Mikoyan MiG-29. But this issue has now been fixed. The Ukrainian JDAM was first brought into service in 1997, and has been in service ever since, and during that time has pretty much been used in most conflicts the United States has been involved with. Created by Boeing, the JDAM is highly respected throughout NATO countries. During the testing phase of development, over 450 JDAMs were dropped. The tests concluded an accuracy rate of 9.6 meters of landing in and around the target, and also achieved a 95% reliability rating. These tests were even carried out in operational conditions, such as dropping the bomb through clouds, storms, dust and snow. All tests showed good results. The JDAM is extremely modular, with many variants for different tasks and ranges, from 500 pounds to 1,000 pounds and all the way up to 2,000 pounds in weight and size. During the development, a radical new idea was thought up for the aiming process, using GPS to make the bomb land on target. This was deemed highly controversial back in the 1990s, as GPS satellites were very few, and the idea itself was untested. So a program was set up at the ironically named OCD, or Operational Concept Demonstration, at Eglin Air Force Base. It was a tall order, as the program was given 1 year to show results. The bomb was fitted with an INS GPS guidance kit. INS stands for Inertial Navigation System. It is a navigation device that uses gyroscopes, accelerometers, and a computer that constantly calculates the position, velocity, and orientation by using dead reckoning. Inertial navigation is used in more than just JDAMs. It's also used in the navigation of aircraft, missiles, ships, spacecraft, and even some mobile phones. With this new gadget, about a year later, the OCD project was able to test out their new prototype bomb. It was dropped from an F-16 at 88,000 feet. It was a success. So within half a dozen years later, the JDAM was outfitted to the US Air Force and US naval aircraft. The JDAM's first appearance on the battlefield was during the Kosovo War, during Operation Allied Force. This was an aerial bombing campaign by NATO that lasted from the 24th of March to the 10th of June in 1999. The B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, which was also making its first appearance, was loaded with the new JDAMs and would fly 30-hour non-stop missions, dropping 651 JDAMs. This colossal feat would reportedly have a 96% reliability and destroy 87% of their targets. This explosive entrance secured the JDAM's reputation as a bomb to be feared. It also saw upgrades, making it more deadly than its original build. Modern JDAMs can glide up to 45 miles, which is a huge standoff range, allowing the attacking aircraft to be well out of range of anti-aircraft fire. It is accurate to within 5 meters of CEP, or circular error probability. It can be dropped from 14,000 meters and has wings that deploy, guiding it to the intended target. It is also a fire-and-forget weapon, meaning once released, the pilot can turn and burn out of there whilst the bomb glides to the target. The bomb's free flight is 100 seconds. The kill radius, even at an average variant size, is 33.5 meters. Not as big as, say, a 155mm artillery shell, which shows that amongst cutting-edge airstrikes, artillery still has a big place on the modern battlefield. It is currently used by NATO and allied countries like Germany, South Korea and Australia, to name but a few. And to other countries, it is the model of a guided bomb. But Russia first designed their FAB-500M62 back in the 60s, so it can't be a copy. However, the glide kit they are mounted with looks very similar to the JDAMs, so maybe one could argue it is an upgraded sort of copy. The latest variant, which has been exported to Ukraine to support their war effort, is the JDAM-ER, where ER stands for Extended Range. They are part of the $1.9 billion aid package from the United States, and experts have said it will bring a new accuracy to the Ukrainian Air Force that they haven't had previously. The JDAM-ERs have a customized pylon and a digital data bus, making them compatible with Ukrainian jets and bombers. All that being said, how do these two bombs stack up against each other? Let's go over some basic facts. The FAB-500 is of cheaper quality and hasn't had anywhere near as much success as the JDAM. But because the FAB-500 is cheaper to make, their total number is estimated to be superior to the JDAM's already quite high numbers. It's important to mention the Americans have had to convert their JDAMs to work on Ukrainian jets. So if America is to keep supplying Ukraine with them, these conversions are going to affect logistics, as this would take extra time. Additionally, more time needs to be given to train up Ukrainian pilots on how to operate JDAMs. This in turn means fewer pilots in action, which the Ukrainian Air Force just can't afford to spare. The JDAM costs more, but it is far more reliable and is exactly what Ukraine needs right now as they plan their big offensive. Ideally, before an attack, you want to strike deep behind enemy lines to hit the artery units of an army. Targets such as HQs, fuel and ammunition dumps, logistical and supply lines, bridges and roads to slow reinforcements, or other such areas where enemy units would gather. In this instance, the JDAM has been labelled more deadly than the HIMARS, America's light multiple rocket launcher, which was already sorely sought after by Ukraine. Russia, however, has already gained territory, and with their new bomb, the modified FAB-500, it might just be enough to tip the scales yet further in their direction, maybe even enough to fend off a Ukrainian offensive. On the other hand, there's also the JDAM's guidance system. Even if the missile loses its GPS connection or is jammed, JDAM is still accurate enough to land close enough to the target to take it out. In addition, the JDAM does have what's called bomb tossing ability. This is executed by low-level flying, then the aircraft pulls upward, releasing the bomb, giving the bomb additional flight time by starting its ballistic path with an upward vector. In simple terms, the jet does a loop, releasing the bomb on the high point, causing a tossing effect and allowing the aircraft to avoid flying directly over the target. This gives more safety to the attacking jet in case the target is heavily defended, and avoids the danger of getting hit by the blast from the jet's own bomb. Both sides have now added gliding bombs to their arsenal, just in time for when the war is about to enter another phase. Could these bombs be the deciding factor for one side? Or has it just escalated and evened the score again? We can only wait and see. More videos on the conflict in Ukraine are on the way, so make sure you are subscribed and have pressed the bell button. Please consider liking, commenting and sharing, it helps immensely. Our videos would be impossible without our kind patrons and YouTube channel members, whose ranks you can join via the links in the description to know our schedule, get early access to our videos, access our Discord, and much more. This is the Kings and Generals channel, and we will catch you on the next one.